Okay, so our last PS5 video was quite a special one because you see, we got our hands on the world's first actual photo of the PlayStation 5 developers kit. Our video actually got picked up by quite a lot of tech websites, which never really happened before, at least not to this scale, so yeah, thank you all for the support and for sticking around for so many years. We've also hit 900,000 subscribers in the meantime, by the way, so yeah, huge thank you to every single one of you, and we're also giving away, by the way, a pair of the AirPods Pros, by the way, and also the Google Pixel 4 in so orange. So full details about both giveaways in the description box down below. So now get ready, get all of those snacks ready, that popcorn and those drinks, because this is the video that I promised you guys. A video focused solely on the PS5 controller. If you're a gamer, then you'll definitely enjoy this video. And if you're not a gamer, well, keep watching because the PS5 will indeed be a truly revolutionary device. Not just for playing the most graphically advanced video games, but also for watching 4K and even 8K movies. And speaking of gaming, if you want to experience the highest-end console quality game on your mobile phone, then do check out Raid Shadow Legends, our sponsor for this video. Raid Shadow Legends is one of the top 3 ranked RPG games on the Google Play Store with over 15 million downloads in just the last 6 months and over 441,000 4.5-star reviews. So yeah, this is one of the biggest mobile games in the world right now with millions and millions of players. Raid is a full-fledged turn-based RPG game with over 400 champions for you to collect and customize the way you want. And the graphics in this game just look outstanding. I mean, take a look at that. This is basically console quality graphics, and you can even play this in up to 60 frames per second, which is just nuts. It's got everything you would expect from an RPG game, from PvE to PvP battles to even a full campaign. And the best part about it is that it's free to play. There are more than 14 new champions being added every single month, and you get tons of free champions and equipment by just doing the tutorials and learning how to play, such as the Arbiter champion, which is actually one of the best legendaries in the whole game, and you get that for free. Raid Shadow Legends is expanding really fast with constant updates, and the entire game is free, so you don't have to pay to play, so there's really no reason not to give it a try. Oh, and if you do give it a try, use the link in the description to get 50,000 silver and a free epic champion as part of the new player program to start your journey. Okay, so when playing a game, in my opinion at least, there are 3 very important parts of every single game. Number 1 is the story, number 2 is how that story is being played, so the gameplay itself, and then number 3 is what that story is being played with, so the controller itself. And personally, I've always preferred a gaming controller to a mouse and a keyboard. Yes, a mouse is more accurate, but a controller is much more comfortable, and you get motion controllers, you get vibrations and even touch inputs, all of which immerse you so much more in the game than a regular mouse and keyboard can. Now, the first PS1 controller, the original DualShock, was one of the most iconic controllers ever to be released. It had vibration feedback, which back in 1997, was a huge deal. It had dual joysticks and symmetrical buttons, which I've always preferred. Then the DualShock 2, which was released with the PlayStation 2 back in 2000, wasn't really that big of an upgrade. You see, it had pretty much the same style design, just a bit slimmer, a bit lighter, and came in black, but all the main buttons were actually pressure sensitive now, so that was basically the biggest change. So the more you press the triggers, for example, the faster your car would start driving and things like that. Then came the DualShock 3 with the PlayStation 3, and the DualShock 3 was the first big change in a Sony controller. It was Sony's first fully wireless controller. It featured 6-axis motion sensing, so basically a gyroscope that could sense the direction and the orientation that you held the controller at, and you could play certain games that way and even use the controller itself as a racing wheel, so yeah, really cool stuff. And it also featured a mini USB port for charging and connecting it to other devices, such as a PSP, a PlayStation Portable, or even a full PC by using some third-party apps. And then, in 2013, when the PlayStation 4 was released, we got an even bigger update to Sony's line of game controllers, and that was the DualShock 4. Not only did the DualShock 4 feature the first big design change in a Sony controller, but it also came with a ton of major features. The start and select buttons were replaced with options and share. We also got a built-in speaker for some sound effects that your controller would actually play when, let's say, you were reloading or firing a gun. That was pretty cool. And then we also got an actual touchpad on the controller itself, which would not only be used in games, but also in a web browser as a mouse. And it was also its own pressable button, by the way. We got redesigned joysticks that were now concave rather than convex. It came with a massive light bar on the back for not only giving you a visual feedback of what was happening in your game. For example, if the light turned red, then that meant that your health was critical. but that light was also used for 3D depth tracking with the PlayStation camera and the PlayStation VR headset, which was later released. We got a micro USB port from the mini USB that we had before, and we even got something that was by far my favorite feature, and that was a 3.5mm headphone jack. Yes, you can now plug in any headphones that you wanted directly in the controller itself. How amazing was that? So yes, the PS4 controller, the DualShock 4, was the biggest change ever that Sony has ever made so far in a controller. So now what about the DualShock 5, you know, the PS5 controller? Well, we've actually had a few leaked images that give us a glimpse at the PS5 controller. The first one was posted by Ray Sekiro on Twitter, and this one shows a very weird looking controller. Yeah, probably the first two things that you've noticed right away are the weird indented shape of the bottom of the controller itself and that integrated display. But there's quite a few more things that do stand out. So the directional arrow keys, for example, on the left have now been redesigned. They're slimmer, a bit taller, and the arrow symbols are now on the inside of the keys rather than on the outside. The PlayStation symbols, the square, the circle, the triangle, and X, or cross, they seem to be the same as before. Maybe a bit more raised, but yeah, it's quite hard to tell from this image. The share and option buttons are now horizontal rather than vertical, and it seems like we also have two instead of just one speaker grills on each side of the display. And I'm not fully sure how well you can see this, but the L1 and the R1 buttons, so the triggers, they seem to have been redesigned as well, and they're quite a bit larger now. And it seems to me that the 3.5mm headphone jack and the proprietary connector, or at least a USB Type-C port, they do seem to be located on the bottom of the controller, just like on the PS4 one. Okay, now let's talk about the two elephants in the room: the display and the shape of the controller. But first, don't forget about the AirPods Pro giveaway and the Google Pixel 4 giveaways that we're currently doing, so full details on both in the description box down below. Okay, so now when it comes to the display, the whole idea behind it is for it to be an upgrade to the touch panel that we had with the PS4 controller. And I can definitely see this happening. The display would allow you to see certain elements of a game, such as the inventory or the in-game party or chat, just like we have in this image here. And I do think that it would be something very useful to have, since at the moment, if you want to chat with your friends via text, you can indeed connect to your phone to the PlayStation, but that does take quite some time to do, and typing using that joystick is just a nightmare. So, you know, something like this would speed up the process, the typing process, by a lot. Okay, so the only question is, what impact will this have on the battery life? Well, it should have quite a significant one, and considering that the PS4 controller is pretty well known for a not so great battery life, well, this isn't looking great for the PS5 controller. However, if we take a look at the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, for example, this is by far the best controller on the market when it comes to the battery life, and right on par, by the way, with the Xbox One and Elite 2 controller, both offering a staggering 40-hour battery life. But I mean, even 10 hours would be enough, as long as Sony manages to add everything that they want to add in this controller, and I would say that that's actually perfectly doable, especially considering that a PS4 controller, by the way, uses Bluetooth 2.1, which is ancient, and nowadays we have Bluetooth 5.0, which is significantly more power efficient, and by 2020 we should have Bluetooth 5.2, by the way. And, you know, this combined with the more efficient batteries and the chips, I would say that 10 hours with everything included in this controller, including the display, is doable. Now, onto the second elephant. So yeah, when it comes to the shape, yes, it does look to be extremely uncomfortable, judging by how the bottom bit is a bit lower than the top portion. So I don't know, it's one of those things where I will need to hold this in my hand to see for myself how comfortable or uncomfortable it really is. But something that you should keep in mind is that this is not the final version of the PS5 controller, no. This is very likely a dev kit controller that would work alongside the developer's kit that I showed you guys in the previous video exclusively. So yeah, make sure to watch that one in case you want to learn more about the actual PlayStation 5, as this video is mostly focused on the controller itself. So the final version will be more polished with a thinner design and possibly without that indented part towards the bottom. Now, when I first saw this image, I was like, this might be a render. However, I don't think it is, because of two reasons. So the first one being that, you know, we actually make 3D renders here at ZONEofTECH, and well, this PS5 one, the controller, is probably the best one that I have ever seen. Like, this is very, very well done. And it's also an extremely difficult shape to do, so if this is a render, it's probably the best one I've ever seen. And then two, there were actually multiple leaked photos of this controller from many other sources, and yep, they all look the same. Here's another photo from Twitter user Tidux that shows this PS5 controller next to an early PS5 development kit unit. And then we have this other image that was posted on Reddit that again shows the same controller from a different angle. And yes, they could all be renders made by the same person that decided to share it with random people, but I don't think that's the case. You see, if we take a look at the actual photo of a real PS4 FK controller from back in the day, you can see that this one was, well, similar to the PS5 one, as in it was big, it was thick, it was chunky, so it had that chunky form factor, which we all know how much thinner and, more sleeker the end unit actually ended up being. However, the main characteristics of the controller still remain, such as the overall design from the front, the button layout, the touch bar, and even the light bar, even though it did look more squared off in the dev kit model. Now, we actually made our own PS5 controller 3D model as a merge between the PS4 controller and the PS5 dev kit controller. So we still have the overall same PS4 controller design, just with slightly longer handles. We do have the built-in display, the horizontal option and share buttons, the light bar on the top, which we've actually made bigger than the PS4 one for even easier tracking from a greater distance. We have the dual speakers to the side of the display and the 3.5mm headphone jack on the bottom. And we've actually removed Sony's proprietary connector in favor of just the USB Type-C port on the back. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So you can see how similar it looks to the PS4 controller, and yet how it incorporates the brand new features such as the display, the speakers, and also a very unique feature that I haven't really mentioned before. What is that feature, Daniel? Well, it's a really, really cool one. So Sony had this interview, another interview with The Wire back in early October, so pretty recent, where they not only confirmed the name of the PS5, which, surprise, surprise, is indeed the PlayStation 5, but they also confirmed the release date, holiday 2020, alongside some exclusive details about the PS5 and the PS5 controller. Again, all the details about the PS5 in the previous video. So Mark Cerny, the lead architect on both the PS4 and the PS5, had this interview with Peter Rubin of The Wired, and Mark actually handed Rubin a PS5 controller, which according to Peter, looked very similar to the PS4 one. And according to Mark, this will be a next generation controller as well. A change as big as the PS4 controller was from the PS3 one. And apparently Sony will now have a voice assistant. Yes, a voice assistant similar to Siri, Alexa, or Cortana built into the PS5. And the controller will also have a built-in microphone to pick up that audio. Now, the second change that was officially confirmed are adaptive triggers that can offer varying levels of pressure based on the weapon that you use. So you'll actually be able to feel the tension in the triggers increasing as you pull the arrow back in a bow, and different weapons having different feels on the trigger. So that's some really cool stuff. And then the third officially confirmed feature is probably the biggest one, and that is a haptic engine. So similar to what modern smartphones use today, but basically on steroids. So you'll be able to feel not just vibrations, but also certain elements of the actual game. So Peter was saying how he played a platformer and he could actually feel things such as sand, mud, ice on the thumbsticks. He could feel the haptic engine and also the triggers offering a different type of resistance based on the environment that he was in the game. Oh, and apparently there's also a new version of Gran Turismo Sport, and Peter was able to feel the difference between different types of terrains like mud and asphalt, which is incredible. Like, wow, I'm really excited for this. Although, I believe that the competitive gaming community, they might be a bit frustrated with having the joysticks constantly feel different based on, what you touch in the game and what you pick up. So, I don't know. I think it's gonna be really cool, so we'll see. But this will definitely be something that the developers can enable or disable and tweak to their liking when they actually develop a game. Also, USB Type-C is confirmed for the next generation PS5 controller, which was quite expected, and then Mark Cerny also confirmed the existence of a larger battery and how the controller is indeed heavier than a PS4 controller, however still lighter than the current Xbox controller. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about all of this, and let me know in the comments what do you guys think about the controller and the PS5, especially the controller, because that's what this video was about. And don't forget to check out the previous videos on the PS5 with the exclusive PS5 Dev Kit leak that we got our hands on, and also the full list of specs and everything you need to know about the PS5. But yeah, this has been pretty much it for this one. Don't forget about the AirPods Pro giveaway and the Pixel 4 giveaway, links for those in the description. And definitely subscribe and enable notifications for more Leaks and Rumors episodes like this one was, and more detailed videos like this one hopefully was. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH signing out. Cheers.